Coming up in this video, you will discover how Jesus boldly declared his divinity in ways far deeper than a simple modern phrase, how he received worship without hesitation, and how his Jewish audience understood exactly what he meant, even when we sometimes miss it today. Let's jump right in. Number 1, the Bible does not require magic words for divine claims. Some people ask, where did Jesus ever say word for word, "I am God, worship me"? But the Bible never demands that kind of modern catchphrase for someone to be considered divine. Even God the Father never says, "Hey everyone, I am God, worship me," in that exact format. Instead, he reveals his divine identity through titles, mighty acts, fulfilled prophecy, and the worship he alone deserves. In the same way, Jesus reveals his true nature through his actions, through the divine names he applies to himself, and through the authority he demonstrates. That is why in Isaiah chapter 42 verse 8, God declares, "I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another." And yet Jesus receives and shares in this divine glory as he says in John chapter 17 verse 5, "Glorify me with the glory I had with you before the world began." Pause and think about that for a second. If God will not share his glory with another, then who must Jesus be? Keep listening because it only gets stronger from here. Number 2, Jesus' I am statements claim divine identity. Now, skeptics will argue that Jesus never directly called himself God. But in John chapter 8 verse 58, Jesus declared, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." These two words, "I am," echo Exodus chapter 3 verse 14, where God revealed his sacred name to Moses, "I am who I am." The crowd immediately picked up stones to kill Jesus, showing they fully understood what he was claiming. In their first century Jewish mindset, this was a direct claim to divinity. Jesus was boldly identifying himself with the God of Israel. Stick with me, because the next point reveals another jaw-dropping claim of divine authority. Number 3, Jesus forgives sins which only God can do. In Mark chapter 2 and verses 5 through 7, Jesus forgives the sins of a paralyzed man. The religious leaders are shocked and ask, who can forgive sins but God alone? And here is what is remarkable. Jesus does not correct them or say, no, you misunderstand me. Instead, he proves his authority by healing the man on the spot, showing that he had the divine right to forgive sins. If forgiving sins is something only God can do and Jesus does it publicly, what does that say about his identity? Keep watching because next you will see how Jesus even accepted worship. Number 4, Jesus receives worship which God alone deserves. In a Jewish monotheistic culture, worship belongs to God alone. Yet Jesus receives worship multiple times in the Gospels and never once refuses it. For example, in Matthew chapter 14 verse 33, the disciples worship him after he calms the storm. In Matthew chapter 28 verse 9, after his resurrection, they fall at his feet in worship. And in John chapter 9 verse 38, the healed blind man worships Jesus directly. Compare that to the apostle Peter in Acts chapter 10 and verses 25 through 26, who refuses worship from Cornelius, saying, "Stand up, I am only a man." So why does Jesus accept worship? It is because he truly is worthy of it. And next, you will see how he openly claimed unity with God the Father. Number 5, Jesus claims to be one with the Father. In John chapter 10 verse 30, Jesus makes an astounding declaration, "I and the Father are one." His audience picked up stones once again, saying, "You, being a mere man, make yourself God," as recorded in John chapter 10 verse 33. They knew exactly what he was claiming, which is why they called it blasphemy. This was not a vague statement. It was a clear claim to share in the very identity of God. Stay tuned, because there is even more evidence to come. Number 6, Jesus shares God's exclusive divine glory. Listen closely to John chapter 17 verse 5, where Jesus prays, "And now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory I had with you before the world existed." That is staggering. In Isaiah chapter 42, verse 8, God declares, "I will not share my glory with another." So if Jesus shares God's eternal glory, then who can he be except God himself? Keep listening, because in the next point, Jesus is called God to his face, and he accepts it. Number 7. Jesus is called God by his disciples and accepts it. After the resurrection, Thomas sees the risen Christ and cries out in John chapter 20, verse 28, "My Lord and my God." If Jesus were just a prophet, he would have rebuked Thomas on the spot. But instead, he affirms Thomas and blesses him for believing. Other prophets in the Bible, such as Peter in Acts chapter 10, refused worship. Jesus accepts it. That alone is an undeniable clue about who he truly is. Next, let's see how Jesus even claims to judge the entire world, something only God can do. Number 8. Jesus will judge the world, which is a divine prerogative. In the Hebrew Scriptures, God alone is the judge of all humanity. Joel chapter 3 verse 12 says clearly that God gathers the nations for judgment. Yet in John chapter 5 and verses 22 through 23, Jesus declares, "The Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father." That is an astonishing claim. He is placing himself in the seat of divine judgment, which only God has the right to occupy. Hang on, because the next point might surprise you even more. Number 9. Jesus speaks with final divine authority. In the Old Testament, prophets always said, "Thus says the Lord." But Jesus repeatedly says, "Truly, truly, I say to you." For instance, in Matthew chapter 5 and verses 21 through 22, Jesus says, "You have heard it said, but I say to you." He speaks on his own divine authority, showing that he does not merely pass on a message from God, he is the origin of the message. That is a huge clue that he is not a messenger only, but God in the flesh. Keep listening, because the cultural explanation for why Jesus did not just say, "Hey, I am God, worship me," is crucial. Number 10. The cultural context explains why Jesus spoke this way. Now, skeptics will argue that Jesus should have just plainly said, "Hey, I am God, worship me," and ended the debate. But in first century Israel, saying those words outright would have ended Jesus' ministry instantly, because the authorities would have executed him before he could teach, gather disciples, or fulfill prophecy. Instead, Jesus revealed his identity progressively, using language that his Jewish hearers could grasp, building their understanding through fulfilled prophecies, miracles, and divine titles. Finally, after his resurrection, there was no doubt left that he was indeed God. Romans chapter 1 verse 4 declares, "He was declared to be the Son of God in power by his resurrection from the dead." So the reason Jesus did not use a modern English phrase is because he revealed his divinity in a first century Jewish context, through actions, titles, authority, and fulfilled prophecy, and in the end, through his glorious resurrection. So you see, Jesus consistently claimed and demonstrated divine identity in every way his first century Jewish audience would understand. Through acts of authority, through accepting worship, through forgiving sins, and by fulfilling divine prophecy. When a Muslim or anyone else asks, "Where did Jesus say, 'I am God, worship me?' you can confidently say, he did so in a way even more profound than a simple catchphrase, through the very things that only God could do. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.